Hi, my name is Owen Colfer, and I am the author of books like this one, Artemis Fowl. And look, there's my name, so I'm definitely the author and not just faking it. And I'm here today to answer some readers' questions, and these are from the young people from the wonderful Foróige all across the country who, like myself, are in isolation. So we're all getting through it together as a country, I hope. So stay strong, guys, and we will all get to see each other again. So let's get on with the questions. And coincidentally, as I'm holding this book, the first question is, what inspired you to write Artemis Fowl? Okay, well, that's easy enough to answer. I was inspired, first of all, by Irish myths and legends, which I learned in school. And then when I was a teacher, I went on to write my own little storybooks. And the most famous legend of all of the Irish legends is the naughty boy who captures a leprechaun so I can get the crock of gold. And really, Artemis Fowl is just an updated version of that. And the character of Artemis and Fowl himself was based on my younger brother Donald. And I saw a photograph of him in his communion suit, and he looked very mischievous. So I thought, well, that would be a good character to steal the crock of gold. So that's where that came from. Question 2. Of all the books you have written, which is your favorite? Well, I have different favorites all the time. I don't really think about my books that much, really. I think about other people's books, and it's only when I'm answering questions that I look back and think about my own books. I'm very fond of a book called The Legend of Spud Murphy, because it's about libraries and librarians, and they're very important places, and librarians are very important people. And I think if it wasn't for librarians, I wouldn't be a writer today. So I'm very fond of that book, and I'm glad I wrote a little story about them. What happened to Benny after he came back to Ireland? Well, Benny was in 2 books, Benny and Omar, and then Benny and Babe, which was all about when he came back to Ireland. And when he came back to Ireland, he got back to his normal life. But I think he never forgot about Omar. And in my imagination, several years later, Omar would have come to Ireland. He would have migrated to Ireland. And he would have had to cross over the Mediterranean like so many migrants, economic migrants. And then maybe he would have settled in Dublin, but have been sent down to Wexford, and he would have been reunited with Benny, and they both would have been young adults at that point. So I think that's why that book is so popular still, because the idea of people from different cultures being friends is just as important now, if not more so, than it was back when I wrote that book over 20 years ago. How did you become a writer? I was lucky in both my parents were writers. My dad was a historian, so he wrote all the time. My mum is an actress, but she wrote a lot of plays with her friends. So I was around that all the time, and I thought everybody was a writer. So it wasn't until I went to school that I realized, wait a minute, these kids, they're not writing any stories in their spare time. They're playing this game with the ball. So I was no good at that game with the ball, so I stuck to the writing. Who is your hero? I have a lot of heroes. I think one of my great heroes is behind me. I don't know if you can see him there. I'll bring him a little bit closer. Anyone know who that is? Look, he's lost a little bit of his hair there. I'll put his finger over. That is Freddie Mercury, and he's one of my favorite singers. And what I liked about Freddie was that he was not afraid to be himself. He did what he loved to do, and he did it in his own way, and he brought opera music to pop music, which I don't know had been done before. So he decided, well, I like opera and I like pop, so I'm going to put them both together and make a new kind of music, which he did. So if you want an example of that, go and listen to Bohemian Rhapsody. And you might think, I don't know a song called Bohemian Rhapsody, but as soon as it starts to play, you will know it. Mamma Mia, let him go. So I'm going to put Freddie back up on the shelf where he makes sure I work hard. See you later, Freddie. What's the movie like? Oh, I presume you mean the movie of Artemis Fowl. It's great. It's really fun. It's good. It looks great. The special effects are fantastic. It's a great adventure movie. And that will be out in June. So you'll all be able to make up your own mind. It's weird for me to look at that because it's something that was in my head and now it's in the real world. So it's a bit weird, but yeah, I think it's a really good movie. Has being famous changed you? Well, darlings, I'm not really famous. The books are well known, but I'm not really famous. If I walk down the street, people don't know who I am. Which is how I like it. I don't want to be. I just want to have my normal life, and I think because I was in my mid 30s before the books got popular, I already was married and had a couple of kids and mortgage and a normal life, and I've just held on to that life. Now sometimes I find myself in great places, like sometimes I'm hanging out with people at award shows, and that's great. Or going to see movie premieres, that's all. That's all fun, but it all it is fun. The next day I come home, and I'm back to work with just me and Freddie. Uh, who is your favorite author? Wow. Well, I would have loads of favorite authors, and a different one every week. Every time I find a new brilliant book, I think, well, that's my favorite author. But if I had to pick one, I would say our very own Roddy Doyle is very hard to beat because he's funny, but also quite sad. And he wrote the books, The Commitments, The Van, The Snapper, all the books set in Barrytown. So maybe Roddy did write books for kids as well, for young people. So there's something out there for everyone. What do you have any pets? No pets. That's a quick one. I think because I travel so much, I'm out of the country for 4 or 5 months a year. Probably not next year, but most years that I don't really have time for. It'd be very cruel of me to have a pet because the pet will be on its own a lot of the time. How do you stay motivated while writing? Well, that's a very good question. I think because writing for me is I feel it's like a hobby. For a long time it was a hobby, and so I was always looking for time to do it, and I still feel like that. I'm always looking for time to write, and I love writing, and I can't wait to get out to my office and put on my music. That's the next question. What music do you listen to? I listen to everything. I listen to a lot of music from the 70s and 80s, I suppose, that maybe some of your dads and grandparents might listen to. So at the moment I'm listening to people like David Bowie, Slade, does anyone remember them? Mark Bolan, T-Rex, Debbie Harry, all the great stuff from the 70s and 80s. But I do find when I was younger I was very indie, and I thought all pop music was rubbish, but now I realise that actually pop music is great. So I do like some of the modern pop as well. I wouldn't know the names of the bands, I just listen to it on the radio. What's your advice for young people who would like to become a writer? Well, it's very simple. You have to be a writer, you have to write. And there's a lot of people who talk about being a writer and who have great ideas, but they can't find the time to sit down and write. And then they get put off. But I'm saying, do write every day, but you don't have to write loads. You could just write. Some days I'm not feeling so good, and I just write a paragraph. And if that's a good paragraph, then I'm happy with that. So just try and do a little bit every day, even one sentence. Everybody can fit in one sentence, but you'll be surprised how quickly that will build up. Where do you get your ideas? I get my ideas from everywhere. Life, I suppose. All the people I know, looking around me every day. So I get ideas from all over the place. My family, my friends, people I meet at my events, lots of different places. You never know when an idea is going to hit you in the face. So that's why I love having a cell phone, because once you have your phone there, you can just send yourself an email with the idea so you won't forget it, or you can jot it down in your notes, or you can even speak it into your phone now. I will send it to you, so it's great. How are you finding COVID-19 isolation? I'm finding it okay, I suppose. I do. Usually a lot of my time is spent on my own anyway, but I am starting to feel a little bit stir crazy now, because usually after a couple of weeks I go on a trip. So I'm on my own for 2 or 3 weeks, and just when I'm getting tired of being on my own, I have a trip, So I make a trip to London or New York, whatever. But now I've no trips, so it's just me looking at me, and I'm getting a little bored of myself. So luckily Freddie's here, so I can talk to him when I have to. How would Artemis cope with COVID-19 lockdown? What would he be doing? I think Artemis, if he was real, would have solved it by now. He would have made a virus, and he would have found a way to give that virus to everybody in the world. Somehow, I think he would have made it rain virus, because you can actually seed stuff into the clouds and it will rain that. So I think he would have shot it into the clouds, and the clouds would have rained down the vaccine on everybody, and it would be safe to go out again. Maybe our hair would turn blue or something, but we wouldn't be able to catch the virus. So it's a pity Artemis is not a real person. What would you say to young people to help them get through this time? I think it's a time to realize when you're young. Sometimes we forget the different generations, how much we mean to each other. So the older people like me think, well, the young people don't understand what I'm going through. And the younger people think, well, you don't understand what I'm going through. And we forget that we're all the same, really, and we're all going through the same thing. So be open to communication with the adults in your life. If that's your teachers, if that's your parents, if it's your grandparents, whoever it is, your friends, your lecturers, I don't know, but most of us are really not so bad. So give us a chance. So if you're feeling bad, maybe you could talk to us. And one of the best things about, there's not really any good thing, but my sons have spent a lot of time at home, well, all their time, and I've been talking a lot more to them, and I find out, they're great guys. So I'm starting to give them credit for that, I suppose. And maybe that's what we should all do, is be open to talking to those people in our lives that maybe we've closed down on a little bit. So that's all from me. So thanks to Maria Foróige for contacting me. I'm delighted to do this. And again, if we all stick together and try to stay positive and find something to do, maybe you could write your first novel, or maybe you could try and get fit. That's what I should be doing. I think we'll get through this together, and maybe sometime I will see you out in the real world. And please come up and say hello and remind me that we communicated through the medium of the computer. Owen Golfer signing off.